Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishram Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamaham Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalan Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Varijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Prabhupada Ki. Thank you everyone. We're in our final day now. We've been discussing devotional service in different modes. Yesterday we discussed devotional service in the mode of passion. And we heard about Dhruva Maharaj and how he had been offended by his stepmother, Suruchi, who had told him that if you want the privilege to sit on your father's lap, you have to go and do austerities. So Dhruva Maharaj, indeed, he did that. He went to the forest, instructed first by his own mother, Suniti, and then later on by Narad Muni. And we remember his austerity became more and more intense, and he was very much harboring a material desire. He wanted a kingdom greater than his great-grandfather. There could not be any higher material aspiration than that. However, after he did his intense devotion, his intense meditation on Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, then indeed the Lord Vasudev, Prishnigarbha, appeared. And it said that the moment Dhruva saw the Lord, then immediately all of his desires disappeared. And in this way he later on regretted that he had so many material desires, and why did he preoccupy himself and become so enamored by all of those desires? Rather, he said, now I've got your darshan, I realize I don't need anything else. I don't need so much. And in this way, although Dhruva was able to overcome his material desires, the acharyas tell us that we remember from Dhruva the things that we have to avoid whilst in our devotional service. And specifically, Vishayan, which means the desire for enjoying the side benefits of devotion. And then we talked about some of the positive things that we can do in order to make sure we don't get distracted. Then we talked about yasha, how all of us in this world are seeking so much fame, appreciation, acceptance, acknowledgement. We're all looking for some attention because we don't have the full realization that Krishna loves us. Once we know Krishna loves us, then we have no need for getting any fame in this world. But while we're not 100% sure about that, we look to fill that void by finding some adoration and distinction in this world. And therefore we remembered how to guard against the tendency to look for this. We talked also about how sometimes we need these things for our service, and sometimes we also have to engage with these things for our service, but we have to be very, very careful. And then we talked about Aishwaryam, how in the process of devotional service we may get opulence, we may get position, we may get certain facilities, but we should not equate external results of someone else or even the external results that we gain in our devotional service we should not think that that equals inner purity. Many people achieved many things, some even while in a devotional context, but that did not signify or symbolize their inner life. That is something separate. So like this, we ultimately realize from the example of Prahlad that we should pray, Yadi dasyasi me kaman varamscha vadadarshaba kamanam ridya samroham bhavatustu vinay varam. Prahlad says, if you want to give me one benediction, then give me the benediction that all the material desires within my heart will ultimately disappear. So this is where we left off. And now today we will look at devotional service in the mode of goodness. But before we do that, I'm just going to share one thing with you. So far we've been looking at devotional service in the mode of ignorance, devotional service in the mode of passion, devotional service today we'll look at in goodness, and also today we'll look at pure devotional service. And we realize this is a progression. So far we have been talking about these two. When we look at this, what we will realize is that every single soul has the potential to slip into ignorance and passion because we are defective, isn't it? There are 4 defects of the conditioned soul, isn't it? First defect is that we have imperfect senses. Second defect is that we fall prey to illusion. Third defect is that we make mistakes. And fourth defect is that we have a cheating propensity. One analysis of this by our teachers explains that these are not just 4 separate defects, but they, in one sense, you can say, work in progression. Because we have imperfect senses, we're prone to fall in illusion. And because we're prone to fall in illusion, we make mistakes. And because we make mistakes, what we then do is we cheat to cover it up. So the acharyas, they give a very interesting purport to this. They say this one you can't do much about because you have imperfect senses, it is what it is, you can't change this body. Illusion, that will come because Maya is very strong. Illusion can overcome anyone. And therefore mistakes everyone will make. You can't change that. Even in English language they say to err is human. So you will make mistakes. But the acharyas say that the one thing we do have control over is whether we want to cheat or not cheat. The problem in this world is not that we make mistakes. The problem in this world is that we're subject to weakness. But the problem is the duplicity and hypocrisy that comes with it in order to cover it up, ignore it, neglect it, pretend it's not there. That is the problem. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, weakness is not a problem in spiritual life, but cheating is. And therefore, if we want to move towards pure devotional service, then instead of cheating, what we need to embody is honesty. Because if we're honest, even when we're falling short, when we're weak, then we have a chance. Because you know what comes from honesty, right? From honesty comes humility. And from humility comes sincerity. And from sincerity will come integrity. And from integrity will come purity. Therefore, without honesty, there can never be any purity. And that's why, even in Kali Yuga, it's said that there's only one leg on which everything in Kali Yuga is standing. Which leg is that? Truthfulness. Because in Kali Yuga, Kaler Dosha Nidhe Rajan, it's an ocean of faults. But the one leg on which Kali Yuga is standing is truthfulness. Because if we're truthful, if we're honest, if we say, no, I am not there, I need to improve, then that honesty brings a humility. It's very interesting, sometimes in bhakti, your biggest weakness can become your biggest strength. if your biggest weakness, you face it with honesty and it brings about humility, then that biggest weakness, which brings about humility, becomes your biggest strength. And it's interesting that it works the other way as well. Sometimes your biggest strength in bhakti, I have a power to be austere, I have been given the ability to have a lot of knowledge and a good memory, a good intelligence. I have many capabilities and skills that Krishna has given me. I have got a really good, I'm a good orator, or I'm a good singer. It's funny that sometimes the greatest strengths that you have in spiritual life can also become your greatest weakness if it causes you to become proud. So remember, if you have a strength in your spiritual life, it could become your downfall if it gives rise to pride. And if you have a weakness in spiritual life, it could actually lead to your elevation if it brings about humility. And so, when we see these things, we have to be honest, we have to face it, and we have to say, I'm not, I need to improve. And that humility brings a desperation to improve. And that's what leads us, this humility and this honesty is what leads us to devotional service in the mode of goodness. And that is what we're going to describe today. So, according to our analysis, devotional service in the mode of goodness is symbolized by Prithu. Prithu's story appears in the third part of the fourth canto, and it's a very, very interesting story. The story is very long, we don't have time to go through the whole story today, but essentially there was a great king, his name was Anga. And Anga, he had a son named Vena. Now Vena, sometimes you get sons, they turn out good, sometimes they turn out not so good. So Vena, he was a destructive son. He was really creating so much chaos in the world and so much difficulty for everyone. It was so bad that Anga decided, I just have to renounce life. I have to renounce family life. Anyway, why he did that and how he did that, that's a long story. But essentially Vena was ruling, and later on he created so many problems in the world. But Prithu, finally the sages had to kill Vena, and from Vena Prithu came about. The sages mystically churned the body of Vena and Prithu came out. So this is Prithu and this is Archie. And as soon as they were born, then everyone understood, the sages, the denizens, the demigods, everyone understood that they are incredible personalities. Prithu is a Shaktivesha avatar, they could understand. There are different Shaktivesha avatars who are empowered to do different things. For example, Brahma is considered a Shaktivesha avatar, Shrishti Shakti, the power to create. Narad Muni is considered a Shaktivesha avatar, Bhakti Shakti, the power to give devotion. Parashuram is also considered a Shaktivesha avatar, Dushta Damana Shakti, the power to kill the upstarts. And Prithu Maharaj is also considered Shaktivesha avatar. He is Palana Shakti, the Shakti to lead. And so Prithu Maharaj was born, and along with him came his wife Archie. Everyone understood that Archie is also, she is an expansion on the goddess of fortune. So as soon as they were born and they came about, you can see here all the great personalities in the universe, they immediately began to glorify Prithu. And they began to talk about how amazing he is. He hadn't actually done anything by now. He had just been born, but they could see the future. And therefore they were glorifying him and his qualities and his conduct and his character and what he would do in the future. And it's very interesting if you read the Bhagavatam to see how Prithu Maharaj, when he's glorified in this way, how he receives that glorification. There's no sense of passion, no sense of taking that yasha. He just passes it on. He just says, I'm just an instrument. I'm just a servant. Just a leader, but a servant. And in this way, they glorify him in very, very beautiful ways. In one verse, they glorify him. Varshati smayatha kaman parjanya ivatarpayan samudra ivadurbodha satvena chalaradiva. They say, Prithu Maharaj varsati sma yatha kaman. He is like the rain which selflessly nourishes everywhere. The land, the water, the rain never discriminates where it showers everywhere. So similarly, Prithu will be a leader like that, selfless, never just taking care of one group of people, but taking care of everyone, selfless, without any consideration of his own interests. Samudra iva durabodha, and Prithu will be deep like the ocean. You see, someone who serves in the mode of goodness, they're deep, they're thoughtful, they know what the goal is, they always have a vision of where they're going, they never lose sight of the bigger picture. So Prithu, they said, he will be deep like the ocean. He will always maintain the vision of what he's trying to do. And then it said, Satvena chalaradiva, he will be strong, he will be resilient, he will be immovable like the mountains. So here, right here, just in Prithu, you see three of the main qualities of devotional service in the mode of goodness. First thing is, you don't do it for any material gain. Second thing is, you are deep in your consideration, always understanding what the goal is. And third thing is that you're resilient, you continue on, you're unmovable, unshakable in your determination. And like this, they glorified Prithu again and again. And then at one point, after Prithu began ruling, then he decided, like any good king does, to engage in sacrifices. So he decided he would do 100 Ashvamedha sacrifices. So he was doing them not just to establish his superiority, but ultimately these sacrifices were done to bring auspiciousness in the kingdom. So he did it and he got to 99. And when he got to 99, there was one personality who was insecure, one personality who was watching very intently, and one personality who thought, if he does 100, if he makes 100, sometimes it's like that in book distribution. They should do good, but they should not beat my score. Coming to 100, then Indra was watching. And Indra said, he should not complete 100. Otherwise, he will usurp my position, maybe. Therefore, Indra came dressed as a renunciate. You can see here is in saffron. And what he did is, dressed as a renunciate, the final horse for the Ashvamedha sacrifice, he came and he stole it away while the sacrifice was about to be done. And as Prithu Maharaj found out, he immediately told his son Vijitashva that immediately catch him, get the horse back. So Vijitashva chased Indra dressed as a renunciate, and finally Indra ran away. Vijitashva brought the horse back. And just as they were about to do the sacrifice again, Indra came again, did the same thing. Vijitashva went back again. He wanted to kill him, but he didn't. He just got the horse back again. And then Indra did it again, another time, repeatedly, stealing the horse away. So then Prithu Maharaj said, that's it, enough is enough. So Prithu Maharaj just with his arrow and his sword and immediately chased Indra and decided that I'm going to kill him. And in that moment, although everyone agreed that yes, Indra should, this is a completely nefarious activity, someone came to Prithu and said, just leave it. And that was Brahma. Brahma came and said, why are you getting into the dogfight? It's a big thing for Indra, but why is it such a big thing for you? To do this sacrifice, to get the piety, you've done your duty, you've done your best, and if Indra is so concerned about it, let it be. Ultimately, you're in pure devotional service. Why are you worried? You'll never lose out on anything. So don't go down to his level. It's a very important lesson. Don't let someone else's maya become your maya. In other words, when someone displays a lower nature towards you, are you going to respond by going down to their nature? Or are you going to maintain and just say, I will not descend into such low consciousness? And so on Brahma's order, Prithu just left it behind. And when the Lord saw the qualities of Prithu, that he was not attached, that he was not seeking that fame, that recognition, that opulence, that he was ready to just let it go, that he was happy, he had done his duty, then the Lord immediately appeared before Prithu and gave him his darshan. And in this way, Prithu Maharaj is teaching us about how to practice devotion in the mode of goodness. So this is devotional service in the mode of goodness. You can repeat after me. Karma nirharam uddisya parasmin va tadarpanam yadyat yastavyamiti va pritag bhava sasatvikaha. So the three important words here are karma nirharam, which means devotional service in the mode of goodness is to take away. One realizes, I'm impure, I've got so many reactions, so let me perform devotional service to free myself from all these negative reactions as a result of my bad activities. Tadarpanam is the second important word. It means devotional service, you do it out of duty, as an offering to the Lord, because you realize this is my gratitude, this is the way I show my gratitude to the Lord. And then the third important word is yajat, which means that you're doing it not just to purify yourself from karma, but ultimately you're purifying your consciousness. And therefore the translation, Srila Prabhupada just kind of puts it into one, and he says, when a devotee worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead and offers the results of his activities in order to free himself from the inebrities of fruitive activities, his devotion is in the mode of goodness. So basically for all of us, this is the platform that we are trying to get to. This is what we're basically trying to do, is we're trying to, in our stage, perform sattviki bhakti, which means bhakti which is primarily performed for purification. We're doing it dutifully. We realize that spiritual life is not always easy. Devotional service is not always easy. Sometimes people appreciate it, sometimes people don't. Sometimes there are challenges and sometimes it's very easy. Sometimes it's very easy to work with others and sometimes it's very difficult to work with others. Sometimes there are many obstacles and other times everything goes perfectly. But sattviki bhakti means I don't do it for my comfort, I don't do it for my enjoyment, I don't do it because I get some benefit from it, but I do it out of duty, knowing that it's good for me, it will purify me, it will take me to a higher level. And therefore we're attending to our sadhana bhakti every single day. Ultimately we're realizing that it will purify our consciousness. And therefore you can begin to see how this kind of bhakti is much higher. Because in one sense you can say we're not really seeking anything extraneous that will harm our progression towards pure devotion. So the things here do not harm your progression to pure devotion. Whereas in ignorance and passion, the material motivations that are there harm your progression. However, this is also considered pritag bhav. This is also considered not pure because there is still a sense of I, me and mine. We're still thinking, what will I get from it? It's a higher sense of what will I get from it. I'll get purification. But it's not a disturbance. It's still at this point it's good. And therefore the acharyas are recommending us to perform sattviki bhakti. Now I would go more into detail, we have limited time. But basically, this is the point that we're trying to get to. We could say there is a conventional devotee, and we could say there is a committed devotee. A conventional devotee is basically showing signs of ignorance and passion, whereas a committed devotee is stitam sattve prasidati, very much established in sattviki bhakti or devotional service in the mode of goodness. So, for a conventional devotee, for them spiritual life is mainly about an identity. I identify with this group, I identify with this temple, I identify with this movement, It's a social identity, but it doesn't go much beyond that. There are many people who come to the Hare Krishna temple like that. But for a committed devotee, it's not just an identity. Spiritual life is a process. It's something I do every single day in order to purify my heart. And therefore, this is a higher level of devotion. For a conventional devotee affected by ignorance and passion, their main driver for spiritual life is fear and desire. They're fearful that if I don't do it, something bad will happen, and they're hopeful that if I do something, something good will happen, materially speaking. But for a committed devotee, they're functioning mainly on the level of duty. They're doing it because they know it's good for a higher cause. They know it's good because I should show my gratitude towards the Lord. That is Sattviki Bhakti. For a conventional devotee, their spiritual life is mainly about rituals. But for a committed devotee, they do rituals but with knowledge. Isn't it? A sign of sattva is that you have knowledge. You know why you're doing what you're doing. A conventional devotee says, Krishna is part of my life. Yeah, one day a week, one room in the house, one part of my day. But for a committed devotee, they try to connect Krishna in all parts of their life. Can you begin to see the difference? How there's an elevation here? The conventional devotee thinks, I'll give something to Krishna. But a committed devotee, Yat karoshi yadashnashi yajuhoshi dadashi yat tapasya shikanteya tat kurushva madarpanam. Everything is for Krishna. Conventional devotee sees the Lord as their order supplier. They ask God for so many things. But the committed devotee, they don't ask for God so many things, but they come in front of God and say, what can I give to you? And for a conventional devotee, their main mission in life is to conquer material goals. But for a committed devotee, their main mission in life is to conquer their mind and senses. Okay? So now we have to ask ourselves, where am I? Am I here or am I here? And sometimes we are moving, going from here to there, here to there. We have to establish ourselves in being committed devotees, devotional service in the mode of goodness. Now, out of 100 people that come to the Hare Krishna temple, maybe 99 will be conventional, and maybe one may be committed. That is very, very rare. That is very, very, we don't see that in everyone. However, our acharyas go further, and they say actually there is something even more than a committed devotee. If you think this is high, as they say in American English, you ain't seen nothing yet. Because there's something much higher. And that something much higher is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give the world. Chirakala nahi kare prema bhakti dan raga marga bhakti loke karita prachan. He said, for a long time, there was a type of bhakti that I never gave to the world. Now I want to reveal something, a type of bhakti which even goes beyond Sattviki Bhakti. Not just that, a type of pure bhakti that is only found in a very, very confidential part of the spiritual world. This is actually confidential devotional service. We can never get to confidential devotional service if we don't first establish ourselves here. So for most of us, this is what we have to first focus on. Removing ignorance and passion and establishing ourselves in the mode of goodness. However, that is not the goal. The goal is something even much higher than that. Now let me ask you, if a conventional devotee is focused on the identity, the social identity, A committed devotee is focused on the process. What do you think a confidential devotee is focused on? Relationship, exactly. The personality, the relationship with Krishna. That becomes the foremost thing. The best thing about the Krishna consciousness movement is Krishna. And it's amazing how sometimes we can do so many things and forget the personality, the person Krishna, and our relationship with him. So for a confidential devotee, yes, there's a movement, yes, there's sadhana bhakti and there's a process, and yes, they function within all of that, but the real thing is Krishna is amazing, Krishna is charming, Krishna has conquered my heart. If a conventional devotee is based on fear and desire, a committed devotee is based on duty, then what is a confidential devotee driven by? Love, prema. And not just love, love which is free from reverence. This is Vraja Bhakti. This is pure devotional service. What can be more than doing rituals with knowledge? That's already very committed. You're doing everything and you're doing it with a proper motivation, with knowledge. What can be higher than that? For a rituals with love, yes. And that means when you do rituals with love, it means there are no more rituals. Nothing is a ritual anymore. Nothing is a practice anymore. This is just what you do because you love to do it. This is what you do because it's just like, this is natural. This is just life. To see Krishna every day is not just a ritual with knowledge. I can't begin my day without seeing Krishna. This is life. If a conventional devotee thinks Krishna is part of my life, but a committed devotee says Krishna is in all parts of my life, what can be even higher than that? Can there be something higher than that?
Krishna is my life.
Krishna is my life. I think there's something higher than even that.
Krishna is life.
Krishna is life. I enter into Krishna's life. What does Krishna say in Bhagavad Gita? Majjita madgata prana bodhayanta parashparam katayantascha mam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. It's very beautiful Sanskrit. Majjita madgata prana. Prana means your life. Krishna says literally their lives enter into me. So for a confidential devotee, it's not that Krishna is part of my life. I have no life anymore. I enter into Krishna's life. Therefore, for a confidential devotee, Jivan Mukta Sa Uchyate, they're living here, but it's not really about their life here. Their constant meditation is Krishna in the spiritual world. Can you see how high this is? This is such a high type of devotion. Right? If a conventional devotee thinks, I give something to Krishna, and a committed devotee thinks, I give everything to Krishna, what can be higher than that? Can there be anything higher than giving everything to Krishna?
I give my heart to Krishna.
I give your heart to Krishna. Your heart is also part of everything. What can be higher than that? Can there be anything higher?
Krishna gives everything to you.
Krishna gives everything to you. Krishna is mine. I give everything to Krishna, but Krishna is mine. This in Vrindavan is known as mamata, a high level of possessiveness. Right? So a devotee, a confidential devotee, says everything is for Krishna, but Krishna, I own him. Krishna is under my control. That level of intimacy, that level of love, that level of confidential devotion. A committed devotee realizes I'm subservient to Krishna, but a confidential devotee, there's no higher and lower. There's just intimacy. We're friends. We're lovers. We have a confidential relationship. And while a committed devotee is trying to conquer the mind and senses, what can be higher than conquering your mind and senses? That's pretty amazing. Then you're a Goswami. If you conquered your mind and senses, what can be higher than that?
Conquer the heart.
Conquer the heart. conquer the heart of the devotees, conquer the heart of Krishna. Can you see how Srila Prabhupada, based on the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, has revealed a type of devotion that in the world most people would never even come into contact with. Most people, if they're able to understand this type of devotion, they're doing well. 99% of religion is like this. And if someone comes to the level of commitment, that is rare. But the Vaishnava Acharyas say ultimately that kind of commitment, which is based on sattviki bhakti, is only an opportunity to ultimately come to pure devotional service in Vrindavan. And therefore the Bhagavatam is leading us on this journey, saying give up ignorance and passion, establish yourself in sattviki bhakti, and then ultimately realize that through there you can enter into the most natural, spontaneous and effortless type of devotion that exists in Vrindavan. And this is pure devotional service. So this is how, then after explaining Saguna Bhakti, after explaining Saguna Bhakti, then finally Kapila Dev says to Devahuti, now I am teaching you Nirguna Bhakti. This is pure devotional service, so you can repeat. Madguna Shruti Matrena Mai Sarva Guhasaye Manogatira Vichinna Yatha Gangam Bhasom Dudao. Simply by hearing about me, their heart becomes completely soft. The heart must become soft. Bhagavatam says, Tadasmasadam Hridayam Batedam Yadgriyamanar Harinam Adhyayai. If when you hear the holy name, your tears do not fall from your eyes, hairs do not stand on end, shivering does not take place in your body, Tadasmasadam Hridayam Batedam, you must understand you have a steel-framed heart. So the heart must become very soft by the practice of hearing about Krishna, the loving character and qualities of Krishna. Their mind is uncontrollably attracted to me. Just like Ganga cannot be stopped from reaching the ocean, similarly their minds cannot be stopped from reaching me. Isn't it? Queen Kunti prays for this. Tvaime nanya vishaya matir madhu pate sakrit ratim udvahatad adha gangevo gamadanvati. She says, may my devotion to Krishna flow effortlessly towards you, just as the Ganga cannot be stopped from reaching the ocean. Umapati Prabhu was giving beautiful class the other day, and he mentioned the verse, Yuvatinam yatha yuni yunam cha yuvato yatha manobhiramate tadvan manome ramatam tvai. Rupa Goswami says this, that just as the minds of young girls are naturally attracted to young boys, and just as the vice versa is also true, allow my mind to be as naturally drawn towards you in the very same way. This is ultimately where we are trying to reach. And therefore it's a journey. It's a journey from sadhana bhakti to bhava bhakti to prema bhakti. Right now we are doing sadhana bhakti, and there is the effects of ignorance and passion. But basically what Kapila Dev is saying to Devahuti is that be aware of these things and try to come to goodness. Try to practice sattviki bhakti. Not just that, but when you're practicing in goodness, look for inspired sangha. Along with that, look for absorbed service. And along with that, look for deep practice of Shravanam and Sadhana. If you practice devotional service in the mode of goodness and you add these elements to it, then what will happen is in time, bhav will arise within your heart. Because Rupa Goswami says, Kriti sadhya bhavet sadhya sadhya sa sadhana bheda nitta siddhasya bhavasya prakatyam riddhi sadhyata. Sadhana bhakti has a potential. What is the potentiality of sadhana bhakti? The potentiality is that it has the ability to awaken bhav. However, sadhana bhakti has to be practiced free of the tinges of ignorance and passion, in goodness, in a steady way, with the added elements of inspired association, absorbed service, and deep practice of hearing and chanting. If you do these things, then naturally what will happen is bhav will arise within your heart. And bhav is explained by Rupa Goswami in 8 characteristics, 8 or 9. He says in a beautiful verse in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Kshantiravyaर्थकालत्वं विरक्तिर्मानशून्यता आशबन्ध समुत्कण्ठा नामगाने सदारुचि अशक्तिस्ताद् गुणाख्याने प्रीतिस्तद्वशति स्थले इत्यादयोऽनुभावस्योर्जातभावान् कुरे जने. So what Rupa Goswami is saying is that now you have to ask yourself, I've been practicing sadhana bhakti for a long time. Are these signs of bhav arising within my heart? First sign, kshantir, forgiveness. Because you're absorbed in something so much greater, all the injustices of this world become insignificant to you. The more the injustices of this world don't hijack your consciousness and you're able to let it go, the more you can understand that you're absorbed in something higher. You have higher emotions. Because you have higher emotions, the emotional difficulties of this world become insignificant to you. First symptom of bhav. So we can begin to ask ourselves, time is going on. Am I becoming more and more unaffected by all the ups and downs of life? That's a good sign if you can say yes. Second sign of bhav, avyartha kalatvam. You don't want to waste a moment of time. You can't stand to waste time. Time is too valuable because time can be used for serving Krishna. Why would I waste any time? The gopis say to Brahma, people say you're so great that you created 14 planetary systems and 8.4 million species of life and such a complex universal cosmos that works in such a wonderful way, but factually for us we say you made a big mistake because you made eyes which blink, and when they blink for a moment we can't see Krishna. So you basically messed up. Avyartha kalatvam. Why? For a moment you cannot waste that time. Are we becoming like that? More and more conscious that every time, every moment. Next symptom of bhav, virakti, detachment. Yeah. No more desires, no more interest in the things of this world, no more ambitions. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt, no more interest, retired from it. Mana shunyata, a complete absence of pride that we already talked about. Ashakti stad gunakhyane. Bhav means you should see that you are becoming more and more addicted to talking about Krishna. How long can we remain in transcendental sound vibration, hearing about Krishna? How long can we just stay there, hearing the holy name? How long can we just bathe in Shabda? That is a symptom that bhav is coming. Pritis tad vasati stale. Next symptom of bhav, you love to live in a holy place. Because Krishna and his dham are non-different. So therefore, they have the t-shirt, isn't it? I lost my heart in Vrindavan. Right? how much love do we have for the Dham? How much love do we have for that place where the devotees are coming together? And this is also a Dham. Jiva Goswami says there's two very, very holy places in this world. One is the Leela Stali, the place where Krishna performed his pastimes. But Jiva Goswami says just as sacred as the Leela Stali is the Seva Stali, the place where you have service, because that is where you can share your heart with Krishna. So therefore the temple becomes a Seva Stali, a very, very sacred place. So then all of these symptoms are being given by Rupa Goswami, that these emotions should be arising within one's heart. And when those emotions become very, very solidified, Bhava Bhakti is said to be like the rays, Shurya Amsu. Before the sun rises, you can understand the sun is about to rise because you can see the sun rays. So in your heart, if you begin to see these symptoms gradually coming about, you should feel very happy, because it means the rays of prema are now arising, and that means prema may not be so far away. And when these emotions, this bhav, becomes more and more solidified, more and more permanent, more and more deep, then eventually that bhava becomes prema. And that prema, that love, that spontaneous love is actually what the soul is seeking. And so as Kapila Dev takes us on this journey, yes, in the beginning there is a lot of struggle with ignorance and passion. But remember, continue on the journey, because you're heading towards something very, very beautiful. You're heading towards something which will drown your heart in a type of transcendental ecstasy that nothing else can compare to. So, but we must work through the envy and all of these other things, and therefore Kapila Dev is encouraging us, work through all of this. If we find we have these things in our heart, just try to work through all of it. Pray to be rid of it. Change your character. Take feedback. Do everything you can, because this is the most important journey in your life. The inner journey, the inner purification to overcome this saguna bhakti and eventually come to nirguna bhakti. And therefore, right at the beginning of our 4 days, we talked about this. Devotional service means action, attention, and intention. So let us remember that, yes, we may be doing the action, but let us bring the right attention and intention. And in that way, we can actually get to the most confidential type of devotion, pure devotion. And before I open up for questions, we'll just hear from Srila Prabhupada. So maybe we just need to put, I don't know if you can, where will it come out from my computer, or will it
come on the
projector?
We'll see the display.
Right. Can you hear it? Okay, we need a tall person to reach the projector. Keval, you have the adhikar for this service. Okay, so this is Srila Prabhupada. I think he sums it up beautifully in this lecture, so you can hear.
Maharaj, he was talking with his deity. Krishna, that time Madan, he was talking with Sanatana Goswami. Madan, Sanatana Goswami at that time had no temple. He was hanging his deity on the tree. So Madan was talking, he thinks, Sanatana, you are bringing all these dry chapatis and it is stale, and you don't give me little salt. How can I eat? Sadhana those times says, "Sir, where shall I go? Whatever I get, I offer you. You kindly accept. I cannot move, old man." So Krishna had to keep that. Because the bhakta is offering, he cannot refuse. Jiman bhaktya visits. The real thing is bhakti. What you can offer to Krishna, everything belongs to Krishna. What you have got, what is your value? And what is the value of your things? There is nothing. Therefore, the real thing is bhaktya. Real thing is your feeling. Krishna, kindly take it. I have no qualification. I am most rotten fallen. But I applaud this thing for you. Please say. These will be accepted. Don't be perturbed. Always be careful. You are dealing with Krishna. That is my request. Praise the Lord.
Jai Srila Prabhupada ki. So there Srila Prabhupada sums it up beautifully. Real thing is bhakti. Everything else, what is that? It has no value. Ultimately, Krishna, he just wants to engage in pastimes of love with his devotee. So we have to try to come to that point of giving Krishna the pleasure that he so much seeks to have with us, and that means we have to overcome these things. And therefore, for these days, we have been talking about these things. So thank you for patiently listening and participating. And it's now 8 o'clock, so we can have any final questions or comments or anything that anyone would like to. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, when you were explaining the Satviki Bhakti, there was a point there about devotees who do devotional service as a duty. When you do your duty repeatedly, it becomes a bit mechanical.
Yeah.
So is that still in a mode of goodness, or when it becomes mechanical and monotonous, then it is in ignorance? Or does it still stay in passion, or how does that work?
Yes, yes. Yes, they're dutiful. But remember, in Satviki Bhakti, they're always doing it also with knowledge. They're also doing it with an understanding of what their goal is. So it's not just that Satviki Bhakti means you just turn up every day and therefore you're doing Satviki Bhakti. It means you turn up every day, but you also have consciousness of what the goal is. Right? Once a man who was driving, and then two men, he saw them on the side of the road, and one was digging up and he was making a hole, and then he was putting the dirt to one side, and then the other man with the spade, he was taking the dirt and he was putting it back in. So you think, this is a bit strange. Anyway, come back 1 hour later, they were doing the same thing. This guy was digging up, putting the dirt, he was taking the dirt, putting it. They had walked all the way. So he came up to them, he said, "What are you guys doing?" They said, "We're planting trees." He said, "But there's only 2 of you. And you're just digging up." They said, "Yeah, the third guy who puts the seed in, he's sick today. But the job must go on." But what's the point? Because you're missing the seed. So that's not Satviki Bhakti, just to keep doing it. No, the work must go on. But no, the work must go on with the purpose. So sattva means jnana. Sattva means the gates are illumined by knowledge. That means we're doing with knowledge. We may not have love, but we're doing it at least with a consciousness of what the goal is. And therefore, yes, you're right. Even though we may be doing something dutifully, if we don't have consciousness of the goal, then we miss the point. And so yes, when we're talking about this, we're not talking about these things in isolation. There are other qualities which complement them. Is that okay?
Thank you, Maharaj. And Maharaj, on the first day you showed us these 81 types of bhakti, and then
Yes.
today when you were showing us the 3 stages, you mentioned that 90% of the people are on first stage, not even in the committed or the other 2 stages. So Maharaj, is there really some hope? Or
Well, you're already rare, because you came to this point of at least understanding and grasping and connecting with a movement where this knowledge is available. How many people have access to this knowledge, you see? How many people know that God is your friend? You can relate to Him in so many intimate ways. You can wrestle with Him, you can dance with Him, you can run with Him. How many people know that? It's very, very rare. So we are not qualified, but somehow or other we got the opportunity and we're here. So you already defied the odds by coming this far. So why not now defy the odds? But it will take a special effort. I remember when I joined the temple, one devotee said to me, if you want to achieve what others don't achieve, you have to be ready and willing to do what others would never do. So it's going to take a special effort. It's not cheap. Pure devotional service has different characteristics, and one of them is sudurlabha. It's very difficult to attain. Because Krishna becomes conquered, Krishna becomes completely controlled, so He does not just give like that. But if we conquer Krishna's heart, He can't resist but to give it. So what are we going to do? We have to do something in our life to attract Krishna's attention. Does that mean you have to do something big? Does that mean you have to do something extraordinary? Does that mean you have to do something groundbreaking? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe you could just become like Sanatana Goswami and give those chapatis, but give it in love. See? Just an interesting point on this Sanatana Goswami's pastime, because when I read that pastime I thought, but if Madan Mohan is asked, he should give. Because you can also think that, but if Krishna is asking, why not just give? So there's an interesting, another extra commentary on this pastime. And this commentator, the way he explains it is, he says, when Sanatana Goswami was interacting with Madan Mohan, someone may say, why didn't he just give the salt? But he said, Sanatana Goswami, in his mind, he was thinking, I want to serve Madan Mohan unlimitedly. But on the material platform, how much will I be able to bring Madan Mohan because I'm a renunciate? Therefore, if I want to serve Madan Mohan unlimitedly, I have to do it in the mind, manasa seva. So therefore now I have to absorb my mind and consciousness completely and serve Madan Mohan on the manasi seva level. And therefore when Madan Mohan asked for extra, he said, no, I don't ask me for all this salt, then you'll ask for other things. Let me just do my bhajan. Because if you let me do my bhajan, then I can expand and elevate my consciousness, and with elevated consciousness, I will be able to serve you unlimitedly. You see? So then I thought, okay, yeah, makes sense. So Sanatana Goswami, his ultimate desire was to serve Krishna unlimitedly. But with whatever you have, just from the heart, be enough. What Srila Prabhupada was at Radha Damodar between 1959 and 1965, and there was an old Bengali lady. You see in Radha Kund, you can see like all the old Bengali ladies. So every day she was going with her clay pot to the Yamuna, and every day she would bring back so that they could wash the paraphernalia of Radha Damodar. And one time one devotee was there with Srila Prabhupada, and she opened the gate. She came through. And Prabhupada looked at the devotee and he said, this is her last life. She's just waiting to enter into Krishna's playground. Yes, just simple service, but done with the heart. No envy, no pride, no desire for fame, no calculation, no control for position. No, just serving Krishna. That simple bhakti. Real thing is bhakti. So it's so natural, and at the same time sometimes it seems so far, but it's actually so natural. But we have to become simple. Therefore, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he used to say, Saralata Vaishnavatva. Simplicity is Vaishnavism. Somehow to become simple, like a child. Then maybe. Thank you. Okay, I see hands. 1, 2.
Maharaj, from that beautiful story of Prithu Maharaj and Indra. So Prithu Maharaj is doing something noble, very good.
Yes.
But Indra is trying to stop him. And Brahma comes to intervene and says, stop it. It's something good, but stop it. So sometimes you're doing something noble or something good in devotional service, but some devotee may not like it. He's trying to stop you. So can you stop doing what you're doing just for the sake of?
Yeah. So but Prithu was doing something noble. Indra was acting in a guided by the lower modes. So should Prithu have just carried on? If Prithu had carried on, that would also have been fine, because Prithu was a pure devotee. So he could have also carried on, and that would have also been a different exhibition of his purity. But because Brahma came, and because Brahma was his authority and his spiritual guide in that sense, then he accepted that higher guidance and therefore let it go. Otherwise, Prithu may have gone ahead and it would have been fine. But once he got the higher guidance of someone who has a broader vision, then he followed that. In our life, therefore, sometimes we may be trying to achieve something noble and someone may be stopping it. Therefore, we can always go to an authority. And if the authority, see, the difficulty is that we can again get into unnecessary quarrel. It can start that I'm trying to do this noble thing. But the danger is that later on it can become, I want to make sure that that person doesn't get their way. You see, it starts as your noble thing to do this service, but in the course of the opposition that comes to you, it gradually becomes less about the service and more about you and that person. And then again you become degraded. So therefore we should always take guidance to remember that yes, when we're fighting for the cause, that we are actually fighting for the cause and we're not actually fighting the person. Right? The main thing is the service has to be done for Krishna. It's not about me being defeated or me. The main thing is the service has to be done. So therefore it's always good to have that guidance to make sure it's not getting personal anymore. Separate the issue from the person. Does that make sense? Okay. Kamita and then. Yeah.
Thank you so much for the changing words. So, my question is, Srila Rupa Goswami says that pure bhakti is devoid of jnana and karma.
Mm-hmm.
And jnana translates to knowledge. And when you were answering Prabhu's question, you said that we have to come from doing bhakti with just rituals and doing rituals with knowledge. That's bhakti in the mode of goodness.
Yeah. So yeah, I understood you. So your question is, is jnana good or bad? So the Sanskrit is anya bhilashita shunyam jnana karmad anavritam. Anavritam is a very important word. It means not covered. It's not that bhakti doesn't have knowledge. but it means bhakti is not covered by knowledge. Pure bhakti is not driven by knowledge. In pure bhakti there may be knowledge, but knowledge goes to the background. The main thing is the heart, the love, the attraction. That's what comes to the foreground. So that's one explanation. It's not that pure bhakti doesn't have knowledge. You see, like for example, look at the Gopi Geet, okay? The gopis are glorifying Krishna. And in one verse they're saying like, Krishna, you are the indwelling super soul within all the living entities. It's not that they don't know. They're glorifying Krishna. They're saying you are the super soul, you are the Paramatma. It's not that they don't know Krishna's position. But anavritam, what is that? That's inconsequential. Krishna is ultimately just the charming cowherd boy who has conquered our hearts. So in spiritual life, we cannot get to that point of spontaneity immediately. So we begin with learning the Bhakti Shastra in a way that awakens our bhakti, and then later on the knowledge goes to the back and the bhakti comes to the front. Because Krishna, Prabhupada said, bhaktya is the real thing. Jnana is not the real thing. But jnana, you see, we're not trying to know Krishna. We're trying to love Krishna. But if knowing Krishna helps us to love Krishna, then it's useful. Therefore, jnanavan mam avadyate. Surrender after. If you really become knowledgeable, then you just surrender. Does that make sense? So anavritam is not covered by knowledge. Yeah. You want to respond?
No, just an addition. We didn't seem to mention other aspects of these modes of ignorance, laziness, even the foods in the mode of ignorance, passion, and goodness, and all these other aspects of these three modes of nature. How can we connect these other understanding of all this, given the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam, in this understanding?
Yeah, so remember I showed you this slide, that the modes of nature, they're all around us and they're also within us. So if you live in the mode of ignorance, if your food is in the mode of ignorance, your environment is in the mode of ignorance, your desires are in the mode of ignorance, then there's a good chance that's also going to affect your devotion, will also be in the mode of ignorance. So you can't have a lifestyle in the mode of ignorance and devotional service in the mode of goodness. Very unlikely. Therefore everything affects. Therefore we must understand how every part of your life is affecting your devotion. How you eat, what you watch, who you associate with, everything. Okay. Oh, Mataji had a question. So, okay. I think at the back there's also someone. They have a mic here, but at the back.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, when you were saying that we need to move from mode of goodness or from committed devotee to confidential devotee, where we move to loving Krishna and say Krishna is mine. But we also hear that we cannot even directly serve Krishna. We have to serve devotees. Then it goes to gopis, manjaris, Srimati Radharani and so on, but we don't have the caliber to even think of serving Krishna. So how does this progression happen where we can go to say that Krishna is mine?
These things are a grace from Krishna. These things are almost like a spontaneous awakening. This is very, very high. It's not that we are going to be able to cultivate this. For most of us to cultivate this at this stage is maybe premature. Therefore, first we have to learn to give everything to Krishna. First let us come there. And then when we come there and gradually we become more and more naturally, spontaneously attracted by Krishna, then naturally these other feelings, these other dispositions of one's heart, they will naturally come about. So all of these things, Nitya Siddha Krishna Prem Sadhya Kabunoy Shravanadi Sudachita Karya Udoy, this natural connection with Krishna is already there. It just has to be awakened. but it has to be awakened systematically, not prematurely. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada said, do not try to approach the confidential types of devotional service prematurely. This is our goal. We should always remember, this is the special thing that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given. We hold this in the highest regard. However, we look at ourselves and we say, right now I have to just get ignorance and passion and let me be realistic. And we work according to our progression. Therefore, like we were saying, sadhana, then bhava, then we can talk about prema and other confidential things. So the reason why all of this is given is so that we can understand what position am I in. Because what happens otherwise in devotional service is people try to do the sadhana or the practice of something which is not the stage where they are. So therefore the Shastras tell us, these are the characteristics of each stage. You can begin to see, I am here, okay, let me focus here first, and then that later. So then we progress systematically. Is that okay? Yes, was there a question back there?
Hare Krishna.
Hare
So, Maharaj, you explained Lord Brahma spoke to Prithu during the last horse sacrifice, and he tells him in one of the verses that when something happens out of material destiny, you should not try to reverse it, because then you'll go into the deepest modes of nescience. There's a verse like that in that discussion. But at the same time, even right now when you were explaining, you mentioned that we have to perform devotional service and accept where we are. There's some level of discrimination, some level of effort being put towards dealing with the consequence of any situation that we are in. But at the same time, Brahmaji is giving Prithu the instruction that don't fight with what's happening naturally out of its accord. So is it not contradictory in one way?
So you're saying in things in life we have to make an effort, we have to try, but at the same time we hear this, let go, accept it. So how much do we try, and how much do we know at what point the trying we should just leave it and let go?
Because in our life, I don't know if Brahmaji will ever come and tell me. So obviously it's not taking that out of context, but it's like, how do we seek the correct guidance and make sure we don't become an Indra by mistake?
Generally in our life, trying means once we put our effort into something, our action, our attention, our best intention, then what happens after that, we accept it as Krishna's plan. You can say this is destined only after you've made your effort. Once you've made your effort, then you have to understand that if the result doesn't go according to your plan, that is Krishna's plan. And then when we start trying to force something beyond Krishna's plan, then that becomes prayasas, over endeavor. Therefore, Rupa Goswami says, Atyahara prayasascha, don't over endeavor. So at what point does endeavor become over endeavor? When you've already put in all your effort and still it's going in a different way, yet you still keep trying and trying and trying, not seeing that perhaps Krishna wants you to do something else. So we have to also have that inner compass to know when to let go of something, when to walk away. And how do you know? Vaishnavas may come, or otherwise you just have to be sincere in your own heart and know at what time it's best to walk away from something. There's no formula. You just have to be confident that you've tried your best now, and now you have to let it go. Is that right? Okay. Something online? Or?
Yeah, there's one question online. Hare Krishna. The question from Bhakti Robert. What sign do we look for as a confirmation being in the right path of bhakti?
What sign should we look for that is a confirmation that we're in the right path? So there are many signs, there are many ways to understand that your devotional service is advancing in the right way. Number one, your lower nature disappears and your higher qualities awaken. So you can understand you're progressing if your character improves. Second thing, you can understand you're progressing when your material desires start disappearing and your spiritual desires become more prominent. Classic sign is your desires change, you're advancing. Third sign that you're advancing is your taste. Your taste for hearing and chanting is increasing. That means you're advancing. So we can say there are many signs in Shastra. Another sign that's given is in the 11th canto. Bhakti pereshan ubhavo viraktir anyatra chesha trika eka kalaha. So this verse is saying when you eat, three things happen. First thing is you get pleasure. Second thing is your senses become energized. And third thing is you get freedom from hunger. So the analogy is that when you perform bhakti, these three things should happen. First thing is you should feel a happiness. Second thing is you should feel energized, which means you should feel the presence of Krishna acting in your life. And the third thing is, just as you get freedom from hunger when you eat, you should get freedom from material attachment. If these things are happening, you can understand I'm moving forward. And then we can say there are many other, here I gave you symptoms of bhava bhakti. If these sentiments, these emotions are coming up, you can understand. So there's plenty of ways in which we can be introspective and understand what our progression is. Okay, so there are other hands, but I think we'll finish there because it's already 8:30. So thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.